Hello everyone, and welcome to today's webinar, Building Dynamic Prompts in Cognos 10 BI Report Studio. My name is Mark Stadler. I'm a Senior Marketing Analyst here at NeoSystems, and I'll be your host for today. Before we get started, I wanted to do a quick run-through of today's agenda. So for many of you, if this is your first time attending a NeoSystems webinar, we want to give an introduction about who we are, our experience with the Cognos toolset, as well as the government contracting industry at large. After that, I'm going to turn things over to Dave Mosier, who's our featured speaker for today. He's going to lead you through a background about what dynamic prompting is in Cognos, and then dive into the actual Cognos product itself to show you about how you can build these and leverage them within your own organization. Specific topics he's going to cover include conditions and variables to control formatting. This is a really great option that's out there to give you a visual look about how your data is currently sitting, as well as cascading data to show you how data from one prompt can kind of flow through additional ones throughout the Cognos system. And then another great feature is definitely the drill-throughs on the same reports. So you can dive down to an extra level of detail and really give your managers and your business line owners a nice little snapshot into what's happening. As always, we'll have Q&A at the end, so please feel free to submit your questions as we go along. One question that we always get from our attendees is, will we make these slides available? We actually are going to publish a recording of this webinar after we are finished here today. It'll probably be up on YouTube in the next few days, so make sure to keep an eye out for the follow-up email that comes from this webinar, probably on Tuesday or Wednesday next week at some point. I'm also going to add that we are currently in the Washington, D.C. area, as I know that many of you are who are out there on the webinar today. We're expecting a pretty severe storm system coming through in the next couple of hours here. So we might experience a drop in connectivity. We're not expecting that whatsoever. But if it does happen, please note that that was probably because of the weather, and we'll make sure to get you the information in case that happens. So without further ado, I want to dive into a background about NeoSystems. So NeoSystems was founded in 2000 as a firm that does primarily accounting and financial management solutions for government contractors. After that, we grew quite immensely, though. In 2003, we partnered up with Deltek, and we are now a Deltek Premier Partner. In fact, we actually have more collective Deltek experience than any other partners out there on the market. In 2010, we became an IBM Business Partner, and we are now an IBM Advanced Business Partner. So we work a lot with the Cognos toolset, including Cognos 8 and 10, Cognos TM1, and Cognos Express to integrate those products with the Deltek suite, which many government contractors are using today. Today we have over 120 employees at NeoSystems, and we serve over 400 clients representing an employee base of 23,000 people. So that's quite a lot of government contractors that are relying on us to manage various components of their back office on a daily basis. And now we offer what we call strategic back office services rather than just concentrating on the accounting and finance side of the back office. So now today that includes services in the human capital management field as well as IT. So what are some of those services? Well, I mentioned earlier that we are both a Deltek and an IBM partner, so we do a lot of consulting around both of those software brands. If you're not using one of those solutions, we do fresh implementations of those using best practices to tailor them to meet the specific needs of your business. But if you have been using one of those solutions for quite some time, we can also help you with re-engineering them to meet your current business needs. Chances are, if it's been a couple of years since you first implemented them, that your business has grown a little bit and doesn't quite look like what it did a few years ago. So we'll help get these tools up to date with your current business processes and work to really make your business more efficient. On the Cognos side, we do a lot of report writing and building of dynamic prompts, which is definitely the topic for today's webinar. So if you're looking for some assistance with that, we can definitely provide you with some. And we do data cleanup as well. If your databases that you're running these reports on are quite messy, we can help you restructure them in a more logical way that will help you get to the information quicker and provide a more comprehensive picture about what your current database looks like. We also do secure private cloud hosting on the IT side. So we have 3 data centers located across the United States and bring in the Deltek and Cognos product suites into all 3 of those centers. Our hosting centers are SSAE 16, SOC 1, and SOC 2, PCI DSS, MA201, as well as ITAR compliant. So if you're unfamiliar with those terms, those are a lot of the boxes that government contractors are looking to check when they're going out there and selecting a hosting provider. So we're definitely one that meets a lot of those security accreditations that people are looking for. Some other compliance assistance that we offer, we're currently sitting on June 13th, and for many government contractors, on June 30th, your incurred cost submissions are due. This is if you are operating on a calendar fiscal year schedule. So if for those people out there who might have attended our webinar in March on incurred cost submissions, please use that as a resource if you haven't quite submitted your ICS yet this year. And if you weren't able to attend that webinar back in March, visit our website. We have a recording from our YouTube channel there, and that will definitely be a great resource to use. And finally, we also offer a policy and procedure management service. So this has a lot of templated accounting policies and HR policies in there that DCA is looking for in a contractor as one of the first items that you need to compete in the government contracting market. So if you're facing an audit, you definitely need an electronic system in place that has these and be able to show that all of your employees have read these procedures and these policies and are operating in compliance with it. So with that being said, I wanted to do our first poll today. So this will actually help give our presenter, Dave Mosier, kind of a feel for our audience today. So we want to know, how familiar are you with the Cognos BI platform? You might be new to it. You're thinking about purchasing licenses or having just purchased it yourself. Maybe you came here trying to find out a little bit of information and become more of a guru in the Report Studio realm. Are you doing some report writing using Report Studio today, or do you consider yourself an experienced user? We're going to keep this open for just a few more seconds. And we'll go ahead and close that out and share the results with you. So it looks to be a nice little mix of people. The most popular answer was how they've done some report writing using Report Studio, but then we also have, it looks to be somewhere about 40% that either consider themselves a new user or that they really need more information to be able to effectively use it. So that's definitely good to know. All right, so with that, I want to introduce our featured speaker today, Dave Mosier. Dave actually was an original founding member of Deltek back in 1984 when it was known as Deltek Systems. Since that time, he's been working with business intelligence tools across various different mediums, but specifically with the Cognos toolset as well. He's been with NeoSystems since 2009, and he helps us write reports and create dynamic prompts for many of our government contracting clients as well as our commercial clients. So with that, I'm going to turn things over to Dave.
Thank you, Mark. Good afternoon, everyone. It's great to be with you, and we're hopefully going to have a nice little discussion about really specifically focused on prompts, but just taking a good look at some functionality in Report Studio and maybe giving you some ideas of things you might want to incorporate into your report writing, or if you're newer to the product, just to get a little bit of a sense both of maybe what's possible and how to go about implementing certain types of functionality. While we're going through, we are going to have a significant time here to do demonstration, and as we're going through, I will try to point out some other sort of related features and aspects of reporting, but our report focus really will be related to prompts, and specifically in putting this together, we thought of ways of trying to work with prompts that people might not have thought of or are beyond what you thought the capabilities might be in Cognos 10 or Cognos 8 as well. The main premise of our presentation is kind of that top bullet there, that you don't need to maintain multiple versions of the same report. I certainly have seen it quite a bit in different situations where one report is developed and it's like, well, it would be nice, this report is based on project, we'd like to have something different that's based on organization, and same layout, same basic parameters, but just a little variation here or there. And there's a lot of flexibility, a lot that is possible within Report Studio and within this environment to build reports that are more powerful and have more flexibility. So we'll take a good look today at how to use prompting in various ways. One of the key ways we'll look at is how to control the report grouping and sorting. And to me, that's a very powerful aspect. So we'll be looking at that. Some other aspects, we'll take a look at conditional formatting, actually walk through how to do a conditional format in a report for those that may not be familiar, haven't seen that. And we have a sort of a little technique we wanted to show related to drill throughs. We're not going to cover the whole scope of drilling through from one report to another, but we did want to show you the possibility. A lot of people working with reports are familiar with the idea of drill throughs and being able to drill from one report, maybe a summary type report, into a more detailed report, but you actually do have an ability to drill through within the same report to open up a separate window and see additional information. So we wanted to kind of put an example right front and center here. For those that have Cognos 8 or Cognos 10, you probably are familiar with, if you're a Deltek client and have purchased the CER product, you're probably familiar with some of the reports or kind of what the content of the product is. But just to introduce it for those that may not be so familiar, CER stands for Costpoint Enterprise Reporting. And Deltek provides CER as their value add for the Cognos BI environment for accessing the Costpoint data. There are two main components of CER. One is the model, so to speak. There's a special reporting model that accesses all the different tables in Costpoint, is structured, has the user-friendly names, has the underlying relationships defined. Very, very powerful capability. And to me, it's a very well-designed model and very worthwhile as a basis for reporting. The other part, however, with the product is that they do supply a set of canned reports, and quite a few different reports, project-related reports, accounts payable reports, purchasing, all different modules, billing. There are all kinds of reports that are available. One of the most popular of the reports available in the CER is the project status report. And if you go into the folders, the menus within the portal, you'll see, as we are demonstrating here, that top window, that there's the listing, project status report. There's only one project status report. Without the dynamic prompts, and that's what we'll be showing today, is making use of dynamic prompting. There are all kinds of options, all kinds of aspects of the project status report that would not work within one report. You'd have to have all different variations. And so we created sort of a fictional menu here. If you didn't use dynamic prompts, then you would have a project status report that's sorted by project, or a separate one by project manager, or one that includes the budget columns. No, you have a separate one that doesn't have budget columns, or so forth. So, and this is probably a short list. The PSR by itself is really a very powerful report. And for those doing report writing, one takeaway I would offer, and maybe a bit of homework, is open up that PSR within Report Studio and try to get a sense of how it works. You know, run the report, see how the report runs, but there are a lot of powerful aspects inside the PSR that I think can serve as a helpful lesson. So the dynamic prompting, the different aspects we're going to talk about today, and we'll be looking at examples. First is the control, grouping, and sorting, that you can essentially, the user, and all of the things we're talking about essentially are controls that are put in place so when the person runs the report, they determine how they want things to happen. And the more you work with dynamic prompts, the more you can put this control. The person runs just one report, and they decide, okay, how do I want the report ordered? What kind of groupings? What is going to be the basis for subtotals? Or just how do I want the data sorted in the report? So the control grouping and sorting is a really important possibility. Then we are going to look at the cascade types of prompts, where you have one prompt and the selection that a user makes in that prompt is the determinant for a secondary prompt. And the example we'll look at is user enters the fiscal year. A lot of reports, you're going to want to have a filtering and a selection of fiscal year and period. The user selects the fiscal year. A background query is run to produce the periods that are available for the fiscal year, or whatever other selections. And then the user chooses from a sort of pre-processed list, an appropriate list for which there will be data in the report. Then we'll also take a look at how prompting can be used to conditionally render or format pages. The user says up front whether they want to include a section of a report or not, or format the report a certain way or not, and that can be managed through the dynamic prompting types of capabilities. The first example we are going to look at, now we're going to go through the slides, and I'm kind of giving you the breakdown of the different capabilities, and then we're going to go and kind of demonstrate all these different things. But the first thing that we have, I think, is an interesting case that you may not have thought of, where different people may want to actually be prompted in different ways for values. A key application of this is perhaps project managers. One person goes in, they would like to just have a listing of projects to choose from, a sort of a pick list format. Others like to use the search and select type of prompt. Well, you as the designer can put the question up front, what kind of prompt do you want? And based on the answer, they will see one type of prompt or another. So we'll take a look at how that can be put together. Another aspect we'll take a look at is that you have a title to report, you have certain text on the report. You can substitute, instead of hard coding titles or other objects, other text in the report, the user can supply the text that they would like to see, and then that is what can be placed in the output. We'll also take a look, and to me it's a key aspect whenever I put a prompt together, is are defaults appropriate, and what would be the right default for one case or another. So we wanted to present here the process when you're going to sort of place a conditional situation on the output, how that's put together, because it is a multi-step process. The top of the screen, you can see the initial prompt, which the label to the left just says, well, show the table data, yes or no. That's when the person runs the report, that's one of the prompts, or the prompt that they'll see. And this essentially says, well, we have available a section of the report that could be viewed, or maybe you want to see it or you don't want to see it. So if they say no, then only the basic report would be shown. If they say yes, then the additional section, in this case, the example here is a separate list frame that comes up. It could be to show or suppress certain columns. It could be to show or suppress a chart. So anyway, the user provides the response. That goes into a variable. So we'll take a little look at the use of variables in the report. And the variable here kind of processes that yes/no response in the prompt into this show data variable, and based on whether it's a yes or a no, then that gets into the logic of the report layout this particular example, there's a list frame at the bottom where the arrow is pointing. If they say yes, then that list will appear. If they say no, then it will not be in the report. And this logic, this type of prompting, this can be used for all different types of objects in the report. It could be used for an entire page, whether a chart, whether you want to show headers and footers, maybe you want to see subtotals or not, table of contents, and so forth. Another aspect of the conditional logic related to output is the use of conditional formatting. The report output you see here, this is kind of our sample report that we'll be looking at as we go through the examples today. The rightmost column is this percentage remaining column, and we've put in place here a conditional statement, essentially, that we want to highlight cases where this percent remaining value is less than 10%. And if so, then display it with the red background. So we'll talk about how to do that. It's nice within Report Studio because there is the rendering and the different types of render variables, the way that can work, but also there's actually separate functionality, which is, I think, fairly simple and straightforward to work with in setting up conditional formatting. The other thing that we'll take a look, this is, I guess, a little removed from our prompt discussion, but how to drill through to detail. It's a little extra trick, I guess you could say, but the fact that you can drill through to detail within the same report, that the user has a basic interaction looking at a list, summary values, and there are links. And if they click on the link, that fires up a query that shows underlying detail that relates to the link. The way this is done, very simply, is to create two separate list frames in the same report, and then to use a parameterized filter to link from one list report to the other. I don't know. Okay, so here is the example that we're going to see, just to give you a visual idea. On the left is a summary report of payments, overall payments for vendors, and then the link for the vendor ID, that blue, the blue font with the underline, obviously looks like a link. By clicking on that, the user can see the details, underlying check details for those payments. So one thing before we get into the demo, I just again wanted to point out the focus of our session. We're going to go into the weeds a little bit, just to look at Report Studio, look at how things are done. Again, those of you not so familiar, if you can't keep up with some of the steps that we're going to take, I would say not to worry. And part of there's maybe two purposes in our session. One is to help those who work on reports to get some new ideas and to think about how they could apply doing some of the things we're talking about, but also for people that have not been so involved with report writing, to think, just to be aware. It's like, oh, we can do this kind of a thing. The idea that instead of having 6 different variations of a report and worry about maintaining so many different things, that you can consolidate. You can build reports that are more flexible and more solid. So with that, I guess we'll go into our demonstration here. And let's see. Okay, so you should be able to see my screen in just a sec. Okay, so here is our demonstration portal, and we have here just our set of reports within the menu that we'll be demonstrating from. And I'm going to go in sort of one step at a time. Most of the reports and the examples we're going to see really tie back to just one report called the project status list, and I'm going to run that, just the basic version of that report initially, just to give you a little background of what this report does, and then we'll get into the specific examples. But very simply, this is a version of a report I wrote a while ago, a few versions of Cognos BI. But essentially, this report is one line per project tied to the project status report data. This particular version is sorted by the projects with the highest value in descending order from highest to lowest. But it shows both kind of the value and the funding for the projects, along with what costs have been incurred, and then a calculation of remaining funding, and then another calculation of the percentage that's remaining. So the two columns on the right are calculations. All the other data is coming from either the project master table or the project status reporting table. So that's basically what this report does. And let's see. Oh, sorry, I have to do a little something with my screen to get this to behave. There we go. Okay, so now I'm going to run our first example. We've applied a particular prompt on here for selecting projects. So if I click on the link, this case, and instead of having one report that kind of had all the different prompts, we're kind of just having a different report that kind of shows each prompt just to make it all stand out. You certainly could combine a lot of these prompt types together into one overall report. But this report, the first thing the user sees is, okay, well, how do you want to be prompted for the data? And we provide them with two choices. You could select from the list or do what's known as a search and select prompt. I'll click on the select from the list, and then down below here, click on the next button. Now, this is a prompt that has 2 pages. Those that may not be familiar, the standard setup when you design a prompt page in Report Studio is to, you have these buttons that show up at the bottom. The back and the next buttons are relevant if you have more than one prompt page. For this capability, you do need to have you would normally set this up anyway with 2 different prompt pages. We've indicated what kind of prompt we want, and the second page comes up to offer the appropriate interface. So the list view here essentially just shows in sequence all of the different projects that are available to choose from. And from here I can just select. Now this is a multiple select type of prompt, so I'm not limited to one project. So let me, I'm sorry, push my button there. So I can select 1 or 2 choices. You also have an option with this type of prompt to do a select all. Once I've made the choices I want, I can click on the finish button, and now my report output just is based from the selections that I've made here. I'm going to go back and we'll take a look in Report Studio at the setup of this report, specifically the setup of the prompts. Just take a moment while we load this. Okay, so for those not familiar with Report Studio, we have these different windows. The first thing that comes up, of course, is the visual representation of the report output. So we have our list format for our project listing. The top left is the window from which we can select data. The default here shows the content of the underlying model, the different fields and tables and underlying data fields that are available. I'm going to go, and of course a main aspect of in Report Studio interacting with things is this bar in the middle, which allows you to interact with the report in different ways. The Page Explorer allows you to manipulate pages. This button here, the Query Explorer, allows you to delve into the underlying queries in the report. And then below here is the Conditional Explorer, and this is where you go if you're going to work with variables that are in place, or to create new variables. So we're going to go back up to our Page Explorer and go into the prompt pages. As you can see, and as I mentioned earlier, there are 2 prompt pages that are configured. I'm going to go to the first one, And if you remember when we ran the report, here is that first prompt. I'm going to click right on the window here for the prompt itself, or the little area for the prompt. And at this point, really one of the most important aspects of putting a prompt together is to work with the properties. And in the lower left-hand window, that's really the properties window. I've highlighted the prompt, and you can see our indicator at the top here that this is a value prompt. Value prompts are essentially set up to give the user a choice of values, and then they select, and that's the basis for the processing in the report. These could either be values that are hard-coded, they're called static choices, or they could be the result of a query that's run in the background to provide choices, such as querying the project table to give you a display of projects. So in this case, this is a prompt with static choices, so I'm going to click on, excuse our little technical error that sometimes pops up in this system here, but the static choices, I'm going to click on the three dots here, and this is the window that comes up for static choices. And you have two different aspects of setting these up. There's the use and the display. The use is, in terms of your design and development of things, is kind of the background code that would be used in the processing if you did if-then logic or for filtering. The display for a prompt is what the user is going to see. And these are the text you see is what we saw when we executed the report. So the choice to select from the list or to do the search and select. Those are the only two choices available. We've configured it so it would be that way. A key aspect, key area of the property screen is this general area. Yes or no is the prompt required, and yes, for this report to go forward, the user does need to tell us what type of prompt screen they want to see. Whether or not multi-select is allowed, and no, it's got to be one or the other. Either you're going to choose from a list or you're going to do the search and select. The selected UI allows you to choose. There are different other types of interfaces. We're doing a drop-down list. You have the list box or the radio button. I think we may have some of these examples later. There's an idea of what the radio button looks like. Essentially, you see all the items together and you kind of click on the button. So the UI is a choice that sometimes is important in how people want to have reports set up. The auto submit and cascade, we'll be talking about that in just a few minutes. Down below here is the actual parameter. You can't have a prompt that doesn't have a parameter, but essentially whatever value is entered, that goes into the parameter, and then it can be used in the processing. And the default selections, if you've decided that you want to provide a default that would, and a lot of times people bring up the prompt page, the defaults all appear and they say, okay, well, I'll just run it with those defaults. That suits exactly what I want. Now we're going to go to page 2 of this, and what we have here essentially are both of the choices. If you want a list, then this upper box is going to appear. If you wanted to do the search and select, then the lower box is going to appear. Actually, I'm not sure we properly demonstrated how the search and select works, but let me go ahead and do that real quickly because it's a very different interface. And here, from within the report, by the way, I can just go and execute the report. But if I say I want to do a search and select, then here is the interface for that. And the way this works, the default behavior is to just type in the first few characters. It searches the background query and finds the all of the projects that begin with the text that's there. For a lot of people, they are familiar with their project IDs, and it's really a quick way for them to find what they need and move forward versus having a whole list. We click on the finish here again, and we get the choices based on what we've selected. I'll go ahead and close this out. So anyway, so the search and select is down below, and the way that this is implemented, we see it all together here in our configuration setup, but the user is only going to get one or the other because Both of these use a variable. This is what's known as a block variable. This each of these, there are two of these boxes, obviously, and I've highlighted the whole box. You can see up here, next to the properties, this is a conditional block. That means it's going to appear when the condition is met. So it kind of requires to have a variable. We set up a variable called the vList type, and in putting this report together, sorry, maybe a little confusing, but it's we have the opposite case essentially, that if the user has said they want a list type, then no, this will not appear, and it's the similar case to have the list block appear. If I click on the conditional explorer, this is where you can go and see the variables, see the back end view of them. I'm going to click on the folder at the top and just click on like the list type. These are set up as what is known as a Boolean type of variable. I'm going to leave it to you to do a little more research and study up on what the different variable types are and how they work. But this is a Boolean variable, and that essentially that's what you use if you're going to do a yes/no choice. And for this type of conditional formatting, that's often what you're going to, that usually is what you're going to want to use. In the background, here is the underlying expression. I'll show you this real quick. Essentially, this param display value, that says grab the value that's in the prompt type. And we did this that, okay, this is the text starts with select or starts with what's the other one, list or find, I've forgotten. But in any case, there's a logic that's in place that helps determine feeding of the parameter into the variable. And the search is for the search type, very similar type of expression related to that. So a little bit of an advanced functionality that we're giving you a view of, but it's definitely worth exploring and looking at how you could put this together. So anyway, if we go back to our page, that's simply how this was done. And this is also background just generally in doing conditional type formatting where you want to have a section appear or not appear. Here we've just done the special customization of a prompt page. So the next report that we're going to go to is the possibility of giving the user capability to edit the text of part of the report or the title. And what we're providing here is the option for the user to enter in the report title that they would want. I'll rename this the way I want it. We'll call it Projects Listing for PM. And the default is to sort by the ID. And I could say, no, I want to use one of these other choices by Project Manager. Click on the Finish. And now, essentially, the layout of the report stays the same. The columns are the same no matter what. But we said do it by Project Manager, so it's alphabetically by Project Manager as opposed to Project ID, or the other option would have been Project Name. And we'll take a quick look at the Report Studio view of this. Oops, hold on. I'll just open up this report in Report Studio. Okay, so we'll just take a look at the prompt page. The report title is a different type of prompt. I click on that, and this is what's known as a list box prompt. This is what you would use if you want the user to simply type in text, and the text they enter would either be brought into the output or be used in filtering or sorting or whatever other functionality in the report itself. In this case, the default selection, I'll click on that, is our project status listing, which we saw initially when we ran the report. So we give them a basic title that they could use, or right here they can change it, and from there our parameter, our parameter here is this P underscore title. So in the report itself, instead of the text, this P title is put in place, and whatever the user types in, that's what will appear. Now on the sort field, this was done with a value prompt and static choices. And here are my choices: project ID, the name, and the manager, all configured the way that I wanted. And show you quickly in the query here how this was put together. We actually configured a calculation called the sort column. Sort column uses what's known as a case statement, case logic, which is very similar to if-then. It's a nice option if you have sort of multiple choices you're putting together. But this is saying, okay, when the user enters P, then project ID is to be used, and an M for these other choices. And of course, we could have added to the list. We could have sorted on 6 different things if we had chosen. But I will point out those 3 elements, project ID, name, and manager, those are part of this query. There's the project ID. So essentially, the sort column takes whichever of those and puts it in place, and that's going to be the basis for sorting and the output. If we look at the page itself, you don't see the sort column in our layout here, but if I click on the list, I've selected the whole list here, and we look at the sorting and grouping. In the background, the sort column is available as a property. We've made it available, and that is the basis for sorting. So whatever the user is input, it goes into the sort column, and that's the way that the report is sorted. This is a similar way that this can be used for grouping, defining groups, and also for paging, if you want to customize the paging. Next example, we'll move right along here. Let's go back from the menus. Oh, my window changed again. Okay, we wanted to show, I'm going to just go right into Report Studio on this one example. Open up the this one other version of the report. Essentially, the report we were just looking at, I just created a quick variation because I wanted to demonstrate this cascade capability, how it works in Report Studio. There are many of the CER reports that have this capability that work this way, where user selects a fiscal year, and that's the basis for the period. The fiscal year here prompt is a value prompt, and it's going to be static choices for the different years, and the default is defined. But the period number is a cascade. There's a separate query that's run, and if you look down here, the cascade source is this PFY, is the fiscal year that the user has supplied. And essentially that value is fed into this prompt PD query, and then the user will see the periods appropriate for the year that they've selected. The query itself, show that real quick. Here's the special query we wrote for the prompting. And the 2 elements are the fiscal year and the period from the key report that we're querying, which is the project summary header, report header table, and it presupposes that it has the filter in there. So the cascade prompts can be very useful. Let me go ahead and just run the report just to show you how it looks. We have a default for 2010, but I could say whatever year. If I say let's go to 2013, the screen blinks a little bit, but it gives me the fact that, okay, in 2013 there's only one period here in our sample data, and that could be the basis for the report. If I said 2010, now you'll have to forgive our sample data, but pretend we're in July of 2010. In our PSR data, we only have data through period 7, or if it's calendar year, then it'll be through July. So the cascade prompts are, I think, can be very useful and are used frequently in custom reporting. So let's go back and look at our other key example of using the, oops, that's not the right one, sorry. Man, I get too lost here. Okay. Got too many reports open, I'm afraid. That's all right, I think I started the wrong report. Okay, we're going to look at our billing history report, a little bit different data here. And in this case, the prompt comes up, simply asks, do you want to see the project labor category billing detail or not? The default here is no, so if I click on the finish, here's our basic report. And this report is billing information. It's organized and grouped by organization with projects sorted within each of the orgs, and some of the project detail, the project manager, and the total amount billed. If I run this again, I can click on the blue arrow there to run it a second time. And if I say yes, now this is a case where the user chooses what they want to see or not. Now in bold, we'll see the columns that now appear because the user said they wanted to see this PLC detail. If we go into Report Studio, just give you a quick view of how this was put together. So here's again our layout. You'll notice, well, here are the PLC columns are part of the main report. We didn't do various pages. There's only one page to the report, but we put conditional formatting into the columns that related to the PLC data. So here is our prompt window. This again is a value prompt. Of course, the choices we already saw. Go over here. And just yes or no. And again, we used a conditional formatting. Parameter here was called the render columns. And if we go to the report page, this was managed with the individual columns. Now this, try to expand this in your thinking to say, okay, instead of columns, this could have been a separate window. It could have been a chart that was a different section of the report, or a second list, or any number of different things. But I'm highlighting the column, the PLC code, and this points up a case where you need to look closely at the ancestry over here. This is called the data column body, or the list column body. I'm going to click on the up arrow, and we actually need to go up to the list column. It sounds very similar. I don't know what's the difference one to the other, but when I click on the list column, then I get into these added properties for the conditional aspect. We set up what was known as a render variable. Again, it's a variable similar to what we saw on the previous report, but you have different choices of variables you can use for conditional aspects of reporting. And essentially, we set up this variable, which again was a yes and no, and the render here indicates yes. When they have said yes, then yes, go ahead and display this column. And separately, we did it individually for each of these columns. But I will, for those doing report writing, I want you to really be aware strongly of this hierarchy. Everything inside of a report is a child of some other object within the report. So you click anywhere in a report and you come over here and click on this arrow, you can see all the levels going up all the way to the sort of the final page within this layout. Okay, we okay on? Okay, I'm going to move along here. We wanted to do a quick demonstration of how to do the conditional formatting. So let me go back out to our menus. I'm going to bring up a version of our project status listing that doesn't have any extra formatting. And we'll go ahead and apply the conditional format that we saw in looking at the report, or we've seen as we've gone through the report. Again, there are two columns in the report that are calculated. The remaining funds, which essentially is subtracting the funded amount or the total incurred from the amount funded, so indicating, okay, that gives you the number of how much money, how much funding is remaining. And then the percentage is also a calculation. Let me go into the query and show you that calculation real quickly. So here is the percent remaining. Okay, so this is I have another version that shows this, but essentially there's a division here. I want to mention that this it's not a bad idea to use an if-then condition when you do division on calculations. That if either one of these is 0, then insert 0 and only do the calculation if you know that the values are not 0. If we get a chance, I'll show you the other version of that. But let's go to the report. We have both calculations in place. I'm going to click on the column, and over here in our conditional section, in addition to these variables, there is the use of conditional styles. And I click on the 3 dots. We don't have any styles in place at this point, so there's a button here for New Conditional Style in the lower left. Say New Conditional Style. The basis for the style is going to be the values in the percent remaining. So that's your first question, what's the basis for the condition? So it's based on the number. It could be based on a different column, but it is based on percent remaining. That's a numeric value, so the type of conditional style needs to be numeric. We'll click on numeric range. And when we do that, we get this very interesting interface. The default is the absolute highest and the absolute lowest values. I'm actually going to need to add a condition to allow for my special formatting. And my key value here is 10%, which in the data means 0.1. We've calculated a percentage, so it's going to be a decimal to the right of the decimal point. Click on OK. Now, you have this nice little toggle here, and the default is pointing anything that's above the value. I'm going to click on our little arrow, so we actually want to set this up for what's below the 10%. And there are defaults provided, the thinking being you'd set up a conditional format that shows, you know, special coloring if it's good or excellent, and down to poor. I'm just going to go ahead and select the default in the interest of time. The default is the red background with the white letters. The pencil over here, as it does throughout Report Studio, that means you can do editing, and it takes you into a screen where it's wide open to choose the fonts, the colors, however you'd want to do it. We'll just stick with this selection, and there we'll just leave the default name for this, Conditional Style 1. You don't see it when you just look at the regular layout, so let's run the report. And now that percent remaining display comes into play, and if you look at it, you'll see that all of these values are less than 10%. In fact, we have a few that essentially were in the negative in terms of remaining funding. And the idea being anyone with oversight looking at this would say, wait a minute, there are some projects that are low or really need to be addressed. Here's the project manager. That person needs to be this needs to be brought to their attention, and take it from there. So that's the conditional formatting. I think we had one other thing to show you. I don't know if, so we talk about the drill through. Let me show you the drill through. This report is based on AP data, and you can see both windows entirely at this point, but the idea being the user can click on the link for the vendor, and the secondary window shows you the underlying detail. So the payment details here is $302,000. Well, that's based on 2 different payments. And then you can interface and look at some of these other cases. Some of these there's just 1 payment. Let's go down here to Home Depot. You click on that one, and okay, there are the payments that make up the total for Home Depot. So it's fairly straightforward. It's really designed as a query on-screen interaction. Of course, that's what drill-throughs are normally. The report, if we take a quick look. So the page view here and page explorer, I think by itself is quite interesting. Overall, we set this up with two different windows. Overall, it's inside of a table. I'm clicking on the, by the way, those who are in Cognos 8 and not Cognos 10, if you're a report writer, one of the big new features that you notice are these three dots in the corner that allow you to more easily select an object. So I'm clicking here, that's the overall table, and then inside the table we have two different sections. Here's the window or the list frame for the summary query, and then over here is a separate list frame for the detail query. If you click on the column where the link is, the vendor ID, we configured that in the drill-through definitions. And here's the drill-through definition screen. This is the same window you see if you're drilling through to a second report. The key thing you'll notice here, the name of this report, well, it's the same report that we're inside of, the payment details for vendors. So if I click on the dots, I could go in and select whichever report, and then the parameters are set up. There's only one key item here, and that's the vendor ID itself. The pencil down here allows you to change parameters if you wanted to edit it. So just a quick look at that. And I think that covers what we needed to in the demo. And just a quick in summary, again, the purpose of our presentation today is just to really encourage those who develop reports to leverage more fully the features of Report Studio. Report Studio, it's very easy to underestimate what you can do, and to allow some time to look, and that's often the thing. A question comes up, can you do this in the report? And rather than me stopping for a second and saying, no, I don't know about that, I will say, I will take a look, because more often than not, the answer is going to be yes, because the full capabilities of Report Studio are pretty amazing, and you want to take as much advantage as you can of the flexibilities, certainly in this case that we've discussed today related to prompting. One thing I'll also mention, which I may have hinted earlier, is the project status report in the CER provides good examples of most of the types of things that we've talked about. So with that, I'll give it back to Mark. Thank you.
Yeah, thanks a lot, Dave. We greatly appreciate that, and taking an inside look at Cognos. So in the interest of time, we're going to speed right along. Just want to make you aware that we actually do have a pre-template set of reports that Dave put together that we will be distributing out to everyone in the follow-up email to come from this. So please check your emails, like I mentioned, probably Tuesday or Wednesday next week, and we'll have that out to you. One important item to note, we actually have a users group for those of you who are down in the Huntsville area that relates to Cognos. You can find out more information about that on our website and the users group that we're holding later this month. We're also looking at starting one in the Washington, D.C. area. So if you are in this area and you're interested in networking with other Cognos users and learning a bit more information about how you can better utilize the tool, drop us an email and we'll be sure to include you on the list. So with that, we want to open the floor to Q&A. I know we're close to the hour here, but if you have a question, make sure to stay on the line and we'll try to address your question as quickly as possible.
First question here, is Report Studio included in Cognos or a separate program? It is part of Cognos BI. Pretty much you think of the overall installation that you have multiple users, and designated users are going to be those who work in Report Studio and generate reports. So yeah, if you obtain Cognos BI, Report Studio is included. What do you recommend as a good Report Studio learning resource? Two answers. Cognos provides a full range of classes for all different aspects of Cognos BI. Deltek offers training for Report Studio, and it focuses on Deltek and CER type examples. The IBM Cognos course is more general, but some of the more advanced classes, Cognos provides some more advanced classes, and Deltek, the range of what they do they don't go as far. They don't extend as far in their overall courses that are available. Question, do you have either online or in-person training sessions for Cognos? Yes, we do in-person training sessions. We are going to be looking at developing online training. I don't think we have a standard course available, and we do custom training arrangements with clients as we talk to people.
Yeah, we don't have anything standardized, as Dave mentioned, but we can take something that's tailored to your company and your environment. And if you're not located in one of the regions where NeoSystems has a presence, we could do something like that over, like a go-to-meeting session or virtually, so that travel doesn't have to be a component of it.
How do we reach out to Cognos for training? If you're a Deltek client, I'm guessing, but I think you probably should start with a conversation with Deltek. I'm not sure. Actually, I can't. We're not in the middle of the contractual arrangements you have with Deltek and Deltek's arrangement with Cognos. But I would say that's certainly. I think the possibility exists to get the classes directly from IBM Cognos, but it may start with a conversation with Deltek. Under resources, can you give more information on the report package from NeoSystems? We provide reports in the impromptu environment for those that we host in impromptu.
Well, I think the question is more about the zip file of reports that we're going to make available.
Oh, I'm sorry. Yes, thank you. Essentially, the reports. I don't know that I've covered all of the reports I've covered are in there, but essentially the report package that we will give you connects to the Deltek CER package, standard packages, and we'll execute from those. So it should be plug and play if you are a Deltek CER user and have those reports and packages in the standard locations as installed, that they will be looking for those packages.
Okay, looks like we're a little bit past the hour here. We have a few more questions that we definitely can follow up offline. But in the meantime, we want to thank everybody for joining today and wish you the best of luck in your Cognos endeavors. And please reach out to us if you have any questions or if you're looking for extra support. Have a great day.